Welcome to the Urban Monk Podcast. Dr. Pedram Shojai here. First time doing a podcast recording in Clubhouse. I decided this is the way to go because I love opening up that fourth wall, if you will, and letting the audience participate with my guests. I get some of the coolest guests when I get around to doing my podcasts, and I like to share them with folks. So today I have Ann Louise Gittleman. Her earlier book I had basically got for my wife when we were trying to have our first kid. It had to do with detoxifying your body in a toxic world. And she has a new book called Radical Longevity, 7 New Radical Rules to Extend Your Youth Span. She is vibrant. She's been doing this for some time and is living it. She practices what she preaches. So I wanted to kind of get up and talk about how to stay young, how to stay healthy, and how to stay vibrant in this modern toxic world. So, Ann, hello and welcome.
Hello.
Nice to have you here. Glad we worked out the tech stuff and now we're on Clubhouse.
It's a pleasure to be with the Urban Monk.
Nice to have you here. Yeah, I was telling my team earlier this year, it's like, hey, I miss doing the podcast. Why, let's go. And we produce so much stuff that sometimes the podcast gets neglected, but it's one of my favorite formats to just hang out and talk to interesting people. So you are one of those. You've been at this for some time. I've read a couple of your works. My wife's read one of your books. And, it's just one of these things that is kind of an ongoing theme, isn't it? The world's toxic. And if you don't do something about it, you don't stand much of a chance. And that's kind of been your thing for some time. And so I'd love to get into your backstory, how you got into this. And then let's just talk about longevity and stuff.
Wonderful. I've been at this for about 40 years, Pedram, and I believe that people can live a long and healthy life because your genes are not your destiny, your biology is not your biography. So I think it's very important for people to understand that I got into this accidentally. I walked into a woman's office in 1974 who was 84 years young, and she taught me all the secrets of longevity way back then. I found out that there were 4 different toxins that you needed to get rid of in your system. One of them was parasites, the other was heavy metals, the third was radiation, and the fourth was fungus. And if you didn't get rid of those toxins at an early age, you'd constantly be in a toxic waste dump as you got older. She lived to the ripe old age of 106 with all of her senses intact, and she became my mentor. So all of the books that I've written are really about the theme of radical longevity. Do you like the title?
I love it. I mean, I think there's aspirational concepts that one can talk about in health, and then there's the big boogaloo stuff that comes to get you, and just the idea of longevity, the idea of vitality, really implies a different form of medicine, a different form of paradigm for how we can get healthy and add to that versus just kind of offset disease and kind of fear what's coming around the corner next.
Well, I chose the title Radical Longevity because I felt that it embodied the concept of fearless passion, resilience, pride, and the ability to regenerate yourself on a cellular level, but you've got to be doing it on a daily basis in this day and time. It's much more toxic now than it was 10 years ago, and we've got a whole new slew of toxins that we're fighting in the environment, whether it's the EMS from our gadgets, whether it's the EMS from the phone that I'm speaking in now, whether it's the smart meters, whether it's the towers, whether it's the baby monitors, we're surrounded in a toxic soup. So it's imperative that we detoxify and detoxify our emotions as well. So it's a body, mind, and spirit book that gets you really down and deep, down and dirty, so to speak, into the body, mind, and spirit connection.
So detoxifying emotions, that's something most people don't know anything about, right? Most of us suppress emotions. Most of us are obviously, in denial that emotions even exist and run our lives in a lot of ways. So how does one start this process of detoxifying the emotional body or the emotional level of our consciousness?
I think it's by becoming aware. I think that's number one. It's very important to become aware of what your childhood traumas might have been. I see a lot of autoimmune conditions, as I'm sure you do. And one of the common themes I'm seeing is repressed childhood trauma, repressed childhood emotions that if you never come to terms with, you'll be sick for the rest of your life. So I take the easy way out. I like psychotherapy in a bottle. I love the concept of meditation that I'm sure you're very aware of, the concept of breathing very deeply on a daily basis. But I also like the Bach flower remedies, which I've been using for 40 years and find that many people do exceedingly well with rescue remedy on a daily basis. These particular remedies were developed in the 1920s by a Welsh homeopath, Dr. Edward Bach, and he found that if herbs were so medicinal, so could flowers. So I'm a big believer in the Star of Bethlehem to start reducing the childhood traumas, meditation, Qigong, any kind of Eastern practice that gets you in touch with your emotions. And I'm also a big believer in the concept of grounding or earthing yourself and getting right near Mother Nature.
Yeah, I love all those things. I mean, some of these things to me are palliative. Some of these things, help. Other things get to the root cause. We just did a 10-part series, a documentary series on trauma. And, there's some of the somatic therapies were really impressive. Some of the, psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, some of the shamanic stuff. I mean, look, I don't care what works. You got to do it, though. You got to get in to get out. If you want to look forward, you got to look within, however you want to say that. There are a lot of things that have landed on my desk over the years, tapping and, EFT and all sorts of things that obviously help people. And so, then the question becomes, are we just, taking some of the edge off, or are we getting in and truly healing this? And some of the most radical healing I've seen in people on the emotional level has been with people who have engaged in actually healing. And those people they become like bright stars. They become very loving. They become, just amazing balls of light here on planet Earth. People who've gone through their trauma and come whole.
And it's not an easy thing, first of all, to identify what's going on and then to be able to release it. I love the concept of neuromuscular massage. I love the concept of releasing your adhesions, any kind of stuck energy, and also treating scars. So I talk a lot about that in one of the chapters, which talks about freeing fascia for better movement. And I think that a lot of times those emotions are embedded in the tissues themselves. So sometimes just using a physical therapy like massage can be very healing.
What do you like for freeing fascia? There's obviously a lot of modalities out there. Qigong is my drug of choice, but sometimes you just got to dig a foam roller in it, or do certain things along the manual therapy spectrum to get some of those results. What are your favorites?
I like myofascial release. I like the Barnes work very much. I once had a real issue with fascia that wouldn't get unstuck, unglued, so to speak, and went down to Florida where I had a whole series of treatments with clear passage, and that made a huge difference in the way that I moved because I had a very serious concussion about 20 years ago. So I'll say that any kind of physical neuromuscular massage or any kind of homeopathic injections can be very helpful. I'm loving Prolozone therapy, the use of ozone internally. I'm doing that as well, and even some stem cell regeneration. So whatever is your drug of choice or your medicine of choice, as long as you're doing it on a daily basis and you're aware and conscious, I think that's really what the key is.
Amen. Yeah, and look, stale water, breeds poison. So moving the fascia, I mean, that wasn't a thing. Like when I was in school, in the acupuncture world, they talked about it, but it was more along the lines of meridians and pathways, and then eventually it's like, oh, look at this, it seems to coincide with fascia. Like, what is this stuff? And that all kind of came to light in the last couple decades. But a lot there is a theory out there that one of the kind of major contributors to the function and the benefits of acupuncture is because it can very specifically get in to these kind of neuromuscular fibers that are bundled up and spun and contorting the fascia, and release that. And when you get the fascia to release, pow, magic starts to happen. I'm sure you've had experience with Chinese medicine because you've looked at so many things.
Yes, I'm a kidney type. I'm not certain exactly what that means, but exceedingly sensitive. So I find that anything that is a subtle energy work, whether it's acupuncture or even cupping, can be very helpful in moving the fascia. The most important nutrient I've discovered is hyaluronic acid. So I'm very big on taking that internally, using it externally, doing a lot of cupping. I think that's very incredibly helpful. And of course, the myofascial relief.
What kind of dosing are you using on the hyaluronic acid?
I'm getting a product that comes in a liquid, quite honestly. It comes in a liquid. I think it's called Baxyl, Baxyl. I take 2 teaspoons a day, and it's made a huge difference in the way my joints move. I'm 70 years young at this point, and it's made a huge difference in the way my joints work, the way that I exercise, the way that I move. So I think hyaluronic acid is a very important, unrecognized, underappreciated substance that can be very helpful internally and externally.
Love it. Yeah, I've played with that in clinical days, and sometimes things just kind of fall off your radar. So I don't think I've had that in my house for a couple years now. So here we go, Amazon, right back on it. One of the things that you're mentioning a lot in your new book, Radical Longevity, is you're talking about stem cells, but you're talking about stem cells that come from our own bodies and our bodies activating those. So let's talk about, there's such a craze around that. It's so wild, wild west. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things that I don't think are close to ethical in the stem cell arena. And then there's just a lot of really good work being done there. And so separating the baby from the bathwater has been an issue. So I want to get your take on stem cells.
Well, I'm going to tell you what just happened. I just had a stem cell shot in my TMJ joint, so God willing, that's going to help my broken TMJ. I had a very serious concussion years ago, and we just shot it with a cord-based stem cell injection that I just got in Seattle. So God willing, that's going to help tremendously in the way that my bite is set up. So I can tell you that there are now energy medicine type substances on the market that can actually activate your body's stem cells with regulatory peptides. So I got in touch with a gal who had just brought in some stem cell research out of Russia, and I talk about that a little bit in the book. It's the Medex for Life stem cells that you can target to your GI tract, to your heart, to your liver, to your bones, to your joints, and I found extraordinary results with people that are using the Medex for Life.
Okay, and are there, when you say kind of energy based, are we talking about just directing some sort of energy targeted laser coherent light without any injections, or are you talking about light guided injections used kind of together? I've seen it all, so I just want to see what you're using.
I'm using a combination of it all. I'm also using some PRP, using the cord blood stem cells, and I'm using the activated stem cell enhancers. So this is activated in a lab. It's this regulatory peptides that are being used in Russian hospitals, and we're seeing tremendous results that have been in this country for about 15 years. So I'm using a combination of all of the above.
Great. And that, I mean, there's been a lot of promise. There's been a lot of people talking about this. I actually have one of my favorite docs who does a lot of this in the audience, and we'll kind of invite her up at the end of this to get her 2 cents on it. Dr. Robin Benson's wonderful. And I've seen a lot. I've been in the space, and I've seen a lot of people talk about exosomes, and there's just been a lot of things that have come and gone. And so what I like to hear from people is what specifically worked for them, obviously, because there's the science is new, as you know, and so I think that there's a lot of room for innovation. But I mean, look, insurance is paying for PRP, and there are a lot of things that have come that are well beyond PRP that people have been using that are just not quite in the mainstream yet, but I'm assuming will be.
I certainly hope so, because I've seen people who've been able to rejuvenate their hip joints, their knee joints, their shoulders, and I've had the PRP done internally, externally. I've also had work done with the exosomes, where I had an internal injection that brought my brain back after a very disastrous concussion. So I kind of walk the walk, talk the talk, and experiment with everything that I write about, and so far all that has been brought together in Radical Longevity.
So one of the things I remember, like again when we were trying to get pregnant, I had pushed one of your books on my wife. She comes from kind of a med head family, and so everything's fine until it's not, and then you just do a bunch of procedures. And so I was like, hey, you should probably read about this stuff because the amount of toxins that come in mom's breast milk, the amount of toxins in the umbilical cord blood, and all these things that we know now, can be prevented and or at least offset with understanding how to detoxify the body. Right. And so we have things that are neurotoxic. We have things that are hepatotoxic. We have things that just get stored in our fat and our bone, and, the whole litany of things that, happen to people in the modern world. For someone who hasn't really had a protocol around detoxification in their life, and someone who is, wanting to start, what happens, I've noticed a lot of times in my experience, is they just get jumped on by some product marketer or someone who's just, hey, I got a shake, take my shit. And then they kind of, either feel better or they don't, but they just got kind of hijacked, if you will. So what's your advice to somebody who is looking to start detoxifying and coming to the light and understanding that this is a problem? Where do they start? How do they start? What do you like for this stuff?
Oh, what a good question. Where do we begin? I really think that they used to talk about the colon being the be-all and end-all for health and well-being, but I really think it begins in the mouth. I'm very concerned about the health of the gums, about the health of the teeth, the toxins that can be emanating from root canals and inappropriately taken out wisdom teeth. So I think going to a good biological mercury-free dentist is exceedingly important to see if there's any toxins lurking in the gum tissue. We're now learning that Alzheimer's people have an enormous amount of gum disease that they're finding in their brains when they do autopsies. So I think the oral cavity is the root of all good, is the root of all evil. I would start right there. And also making sure that there's enough hydrochloric acid in the system. We're finding that the lack of gastric acidity is very connected to autoimmune issues, especially lupus as well as rheumatoid arthritis. So the gastric acidity, which is all part of the digestion, the oral cavity, part of the chewing process, and making sure that your bite is working properly, that the molars are touching back teeth, front teeth, and so on and so forth. So I think that oral health is where it's at, and hidden dental infections are very much underappreciated.
Why the molars? Curious. You muted yourself again.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. We never know. There's something proprioceptively connected when the back molars touch when the molars of the front touch the molars of the back. When you're missing two teeth in a row, there's something that goes on with the brain on the side of the body that the molars are missing. So I've learned that from an outstanding PT guy, Ron Harushka, who's located in Lincoln, Nebraska. If your bite is off, your whole body is off. Your bite is exceedingly important for proprioception as well as the jaw. If the jaw is off, your shoulders are off, your elbow is off, your wrist is off, your hand is off. I know because my bite was off because I fell. So I've learned all this the hard way.
Yeah, some say that's the only way we do learn as humans, right? I know we did a 8-part series called Gateway to Health on oral pathology and how it leads to stuff in the body. And one of the things that came up was the airway and nose breathing and how that activated nitric oxide producing bacteria that live on the back of the tongue, and having the alignment of the molars and the airway being open, allowing for us to nose breathe and stimulate these bacteria to produce nitric oxide. And so I was just curious whether it was a biomechanical or related to that, because there's this whole other realm of the microbiome in the mouth that we're just starting to learn about, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Next question. In this toxic world, one of the things that's come up repeatedly is this epidemic of toxicity leading to weight gain. And some of these toxins, kind of bioaccumulating in our fat. And so the challenge we've had clinically is, someone wants to lose weight, they'll go do stuff and, burn fat, which is, not terribly hard to do. But then the body releases these toxins because it didn't know what to do with them in the first place. They're out in the bloodstream. Body then again realizes it doesn't know what to do with them, and so it signals the thyroid gland to slow down so that you can slow your metabolism and gain weight so you could store the toxins. And so there's this yo-yo weight loss, weight gain effect that we've seen with people that have overly toxic loads in their body. I want to get your take on that and what needs to be done to truly kind of get out of that cycle.
What I do very simply is I try to enhance phase 2 detoxification, which is the part of the liver that starts deactivating the metabolic waste from oils and fats. And I use a substance called sulforaphane. Are you familiar with it?
Oh yeah. Sulforaphane is kind of the darling. We used to sprout our own broccoli, and now there's a couple companies out there that have extraction processes that are promising, but we're still eating a lot of broccoli and sprouting it.
I would check into the CS Health, cs-health.com. They worked for years with Johns Hopkins to develop a seed that's very high in converted sulforaphane. So I use a high dose sulforaphane, and it allows people to lose weight, and also is very helpful for bile health and proper flow.
Love it. I love actionable tips. So, and using that on a daily basis, what kind of dosing? Just give me specifics, please.
They have a physician's formula. I use their physician's formula 2-3 times a day. We've used it with people that have breast cancer, colorectal cancer. I've used it with people with pancreatic cancer with extraordinary results. It's the best kept secret I know of.
I like that. Best kept secrets. One of the other best kept secrets that I was kind of perusing around your book and came up with is what you call the Cinderella mineral that helps prevent loss of memory and reverses Alzheimer's, which is a pretty big statement. So if we could get into that, Alzheimer's, obviously we talked about, the issue with Alzheimer's with mouth bacteria, gut bacteria, some of the things that happen with dysbiosis. But what mineral are you talking about that can come in and offset some of this?
Lithium. I'm talking about lithium. We're talking about nutritional lithium and perhaps the dosage of 5 to 80 milligrams. We're finding that it's extraordinary for people that are in early stages of Alzheimer's to mild Alzheimer's. And I also find that it acts as a chelator specifically of copper, which we're now finding is very connected to Alzheimer's and loss of cognition and other dementia.
Love it. And there's different forms of lithium that you can take as a supplement. There's obviously prescription lithium for bipolar disorders and all that. I know one of my favorite spas has lithium carbonate springs, which is just magical to go dip in. But is there a particular form when you say nutritional?
I like lithium orotate. I'm finding the best results with lithium orotate. And with people that are hyperthyroid, it's also miraculous. So we're using 8 to 20 milligrams when people are hyperthyroid. For those that are suffering from some sort of dementia, we're using up to 50 milligrams.
Love it. Love it. So, folks, the reason I'm doing these podcasts here on Clubhouse, and if you're listening to this on any of the podcast platforms, come to Clubhouse, follow me, Urban Monk, and then the club is called Urban Monks, where I'll be recording it, is then I open up the floor to anyone who wants to raise their hand and jump up and ask my guests any questions. Hope you're okay with that, Ann Louise. Surprise, surprise.
No.
Are you not okay with that? I lost her. Hello?
No. I keep muting myself. I get so excited. No, absolutely. I'm fine with it.
Cool. Just checking. And then I just want to say, anyone who does come up here, I'm going to say this once, is this is a recorded podcast. So anything that you are sharing here is being recorded and will be, in podcast universe. So know that this is recorded and coming up. So I am going to allow the Water Fast Warrior up on stage, and whoever else wants to come, let's get, we got about 15 minutes for questions. And we'll go from there. So anyone who wants to come up, I'm going to bring you back up onto the stage. And if I add you while someone else is talking, please mute yourself when you get up on stage, Clubhouse protocol. So the Water Fast Warrior, Alepio, welcome. What's your question for Ann Louise?
Yeah, my question is that I've been doing kind of leading edge stuff in terms of extended fasting. I developed a protocol based on the latest intermittent fasting here in the United States and extended fasting from the Buchenheimer Wilhelmi therapeutic clinics in Europe. And I wanted to ask your opinion on induced autophagy to reduce the number of senescent cells, therefore lowering the overall inflammation in the body.
Well, I'm very much in favor of what you're talking about. I think intermittent fasting and induced fasting for longer periods is exceedingly helpful. It's something that I wrote about in 2005. It wasn't as well received that as it is now, but I think it's an extraordinarily healthful rejuvenation technique that should be included in any radical longevity protocol.
I have a question about that. You know, there are a number of functional medicine docs that are a bit wary of this with people who have reactive hypoglycemia, people who have issues with their blood sugar in general. What would your advice there be for people who are coming in on the chronic health spectrum, chronic disease spectrum, and are, you know, jumping into some of these radical interventions?
I wouldn't do, and I was just going to say, you and I are on the same wavelength. I wouldn't do extended intermittent fasting without taking some sort of an adrenal supplement. I find it's very stressful for the adrenals. So whether that's ashwagandha, whether that's pantethine or pantothenic acid or some sort of tissue glandular, I think it's very important to support the adrenals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I take it by case basis because I work with an endocrinologist who's an assistant clinical professor with the Keck School of Medicine. So I always run everything by him. But I am achieving some amazing stuff with the people that I'm coaching right now. So just to let you know that.
Well, can you be in touch with me, Ann Louise at annlouise.com, and let me know what you're up to?
Sure, I'll give you one specific example. Right now, I have a person on my team that has a master's in public health out of Purdue, and she's being advised by a former assistant professor with the School of Medicine at Johns Hopkins. The case study we're working on is I coached a 36-year-old woman, mother of three, and after completing a 14-day water-only fast, now has control of her ulcerative colitis.
Miracles do occur. And I hear that quite frankly with people that are doing controlled intermittent and induced fasting. So I very much salute the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. We got some other things. For example, we are working with one lady. She started taking a minimum dosage of hypothyroidism medication, and then she completed a 14-day water-only fast, and she has normalized her thyroid function. We're trying to set it up where, in conjunction with her primary physician, again, everything I do is in consultation with the people's primary physician because, as you well know, as specialists, we only get a little snapshot, whereas a primary physician has the whole picture of the patient's history. So we're trying to set up a case study where if we can determine if just by fasting alone can maintain her thyroid function so she can get off the medication.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, and you know, it's hard because the traditional kind of establishment has a hard time looking at that. But I've seen a lot of those cases. I've seen reversals of diabetes. I've seen reversals of all kinds of things. So yeah, keep up the good work. Reach out to Ann Louise. I literally just dragged her on a Clubhouse minutes before this podcast, so she'll get her stuff set up in her profile as we go. But thank you, and thanks for doing the work that you're doing, Alepio. Dr. Robin Benson.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling. This is a dear friend of mine, colleague who's doing some wonderful, innovative work in longevity in New Mexico, and called her up here to kind of just share what she's doing and chat with you and Louise about some of the protocols, because I've just seen so many miracles coming out of clinics like hers and the work that you're doing. So welcome, Doc.
Well, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. And Ann Louise, wow, you are an incredible woman. I'm a big fan of so many of your books, and I loved it. When you came out with Zapped, I'm like, wow, this woman is so talented in so many ways. And I know we have lots of friends in common here in Santa Fe. Yes. So for the last 28 years, I have specialized in regenerative medicine, doctor of oriental medicine, and really, really gone deep with helping people reclaim their bodies, from a regenerative perspective. And I really have loved focusing on, especially sexual rejuvenation, helping women, reclaim their whole pelvic energy and energetics. And I love that you spoke about scar therapy. And it's incredible what happens when we open up the energetics of a scar area, whether it's in a pelvic floor or it's after a knee surgery, or women who've had hysterectomies. It's phenomenal, the results that people get. And also, you mentioned Prolozone. That is, I feel like I'm like the Prolozone queen of the universe. That is really where I start with people, rather than just jumping into PRP and exosomes and mesenchymal stem cells, just to get that foundation, that scaffolding that's possible, while helping to rebuild the inner world, looking at what's already causing inflammation, looking at possibly doing a fast mimicking diet to help rebuild someone's regenerative engine. So it's been a delight to be able to offer a lot of this medicine over these years. And again, Louise, it's such an honor to be here with you and Dr. Pedram, my dear friend, and to let the world know that these treatments, these life-changing modalities, therapies exist.
Wonderful, Robin. Robin, where are you located?
I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, my old haunting ground, or my old stumping ground. Yes, indeed. God bless Santa Fe.
Yes.
Will you also be in touch with me and let me know the clinical work you're doing? Because I have all kinds of columns in national magazines where people are asking where to go for these kinds of treatments.
Wonderful. Santa Fe Soul Center for Regenerative Medicine. I look forward to collaborating with you and helping out, anybody who would like to get some good guidance.
I love it. Thank you so much.
I'll connect you guys by email too. I just wanted, when you guys talk about Prolozone, most people will nod, but they won't actually know what you're talking about. So can one of you kind of describe what Prolozone is and what it does? Because I think a lot of these buzzwords just kind of brush by and people don't actually know what they are and how they work. Whoever wants to take that, and go ahead.
Well, it's ozone. It's minimal amounts of ozone that are injected in special sites that increase inflammation and healing and produce an inflammatory response that allows collagen to rebuild. And I found that it's exceedingly helpful with all kinds of musculoskeletal issues, unlike anything else I've ever seen.
Yes, exactly. I'd like to add to that too. And I've been doing this for years, and incredible for scar therapy, any type of scars anywhere in the body also. And so a lot of people that, are scheduled for surgery for like even a hip replacement, when bone against bone, I've had incredible results with Prolozone, where you're actually injecting a proliferative agent first that usually includes procaine, dextrose, a regenerin, which includes peptides and some proteins, and followed by the ozone. And what's really beautiful about it is it covers a rather large area without the trauma of prolotherapy. I did that for 7 years before I pretty much switched almost 100% to Prolozone, because it's a lot less invasive and I seem to get a much better effect. And sometimes, it's not just usually one, sometimes it's just one and done. We love that, right? But very often people come 7 to 10 days later, and then we do a second injection, 1 or 2 different sites, and then maybe a third or fourth time. But I can't even tell you how many surgeries have been prevented by Prolozone alone.
I love it. Are you a student of Frank Schallenberger's?
I sure am. I love him. Yes, I am.
I love him too. I think he really should get a Nobel Peace Prize in medicine.
Absolutely. Yes, I was on his stage one time talking about stacking therapies is pretty amazing. So when you do, everybody who gets a Prolozone or a PRP or prolotherapy here also gets PMF, pulse electromagnetic field technology, which I'm sure you talk about in your books as well. And that combination is amazing. It really just takes it to the next level.
Yes, it does. It takes it to the next level of radical longevity.
I'm right there. I love it. Radical longevity.
Awesome. Robin, would love to have you just hang up here for a minute if you can, and then I'll invite Amy to come up and ask a question.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Perman. And Ann Louise, I am so excited to hear you talk, because 30 years in the healing industries and all the research that I've done, and finding people like Dr. Jerry Tennant and Dr. Klinghardt that was talking about the teeth being the molars touching, and seeing people that have been walking like they have epilepsy, and then when he sticks a popsicle stick in their mouth and their jaws aligned and they're walking totally normal. I try to communicate these kinds of things with people and they think I'm crazy. So if they're in your books, I'm so excited to read them and to learn more about you. My question is, I pop in and out of hypothyroidism, and occasionally,
Amy, we lost you. Amy,
sorry.
Hypothyroidism is where we lost you.
Yeah, so I pop in and out of hypothyroidism, and I'm wondering if you have any tips to stay, for whatever reason, my selenium drops. I'm just curious if you have any tips where I can keep that more in a normal range. The T3 and T4 is always normal. It's a TSH that gets high. And
have you had your mercury assessed?
yes, it's low right now. It was high, but this last year it's really odd, because I'll work out and I'll be able to have energy and normal, the ability to work out, and then one day I'll just wake up and be so lethargic and I just can't work out, and I'll go through cycles of it, and I'll get blood work done, and that TSH for whatever reason pops up. But my heavy metals are below 10%. I think it's 10%.
How did you have it assessed, Amy? What kind of testing?
So I ask my actual physician through UCLA to have blood work done, and I usually get ferritin tests as well, because I've had chronic anemia also. And my body just isn't holding on to iron either. So it's been an interesting challenge to get this all sorted out.
May I suggest that you look into a test? It's from a device that's from France. It's called the Oligo Scan. Are you in Los Angeles?
I am.
Do you visit Dietrich often up there in Seattle?
No, I've never studied with him, but I used to work for a dentist who did. So I've seen many of his videos. I work with a research scientist in Mumbai who's been teaching me a lot about blood chemistry, and he makes his own orthomolecular products.
Well, this particular scan will show you the intracellular levels of some of the metals. There's one of your metals or minerals that's a little out of whack. I can't put my finger on it, but I think you need to get this scan. It's called Oligo Scan. It's available in Southern California. I just had a client that came back, and we found out that the source of his Parkinson's was manganese. He had high tissue levels of manganese that never showed up in the blood or in the hair or in the...
Okay, Oligo Scan.
Oligo. OLIGOSCAN.
Thank you so much, Anne. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you, Dr. Robin. Folks, thank you for being here. Ann Louise, new book, Radical Longevity, the 7 New Radical Rules to Extend Your Youth Span. This, to me, is my true healthcare job, is helping people not need all the interventions. Great book. Like I said, been a fan. I'm happy to have had you on the podcast. For those of you who are listening to this on iTunes or anything else, we're recording it in Clubhouse. So, the few people that got up and got to ask my guest a question, that could be you. So come to Clubhouse if you want to be in the podcasts instead of just listening to them. But either way, we're going to be doing them in Clubhouse, and we'll be doing them, putting them where they've been. So either way, however you want to consume, you do it. And what website, where do you want people to go to check out your work? How can we point people your way?
Ann Louise, no E, ANNLOUISE.com.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, my dear friend Robin Benson, for jumping up and hanging out with us. This is Pedram Shojai, the Urban Monk, hosting the Urban Monk podcast, and I'll be hosting a bunch more of these here. Looking forward to seeing you all shortly.
Thank you so much, Pedram. Ann Louise, thank you so much. Wow. Thank you for your great gift to the world and all the lives that you've transformed with your amazing message.
Thank you. And may we all live till 120, Robin.
Woohoo! I'm going for 123. That's kind of
I love it.
Always the overachiever. All right, folks, this room is ending. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Many blessings.